Thank you so much for coming this evening. Sorry we're starting a little late. We have a lot of things in store for you guys tonight. So in case you haven't taken time to turn your ringers on silent mode, that would be great. I just did mine. And why don't we start this evening with prayer and enjoy what's going to be presented. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for each one that's here. We pray that you open our minds to better understanding how to take better care of our bodies. Bless our time together. Please help everything to flow smoothly. And we just trust you with our health and with the future. In Jesus' mighty name, amen. Tonight's demonstration is going to be done by Wanda Harder as well as Darla Schaefer. And the actual cooking and recipes are actually made by a church member, Tanya Boyd, and her family. So enjoy. And then go back.
And then go back to your normal table. Yeah, so you have a better view of it. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to our young ladies here.
Hello? Oh, sorry. Good evening. So glad you guys can come. This evening we're doing 3 different demos here, and first one we're going to be doing is egg-like drop soup, and we will be serving that after our demo, and we'll take questions after our demo as well. Okay. For the egg-like drop soup, we're going to do 2 cups of water into a pot and 3/4 teaspoon of Celtic salt. And this is really important for the Celtic salt. We tried it with regular salt and it didn't turn out as well. And this is the Celtic salt, if you're not familiar. And they sell this at the health food store. Okay? All right, then 1 tablespoon of nutritional yeast flakes. And 1 green onion, thinly sliced. And we're just dumping everything into a pot at this time. And 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder. And 1/4 cup of soft or medium tofu mashed.
And we did use the more new.
Excuse me.
And we did use the more new. That's the substitute.
Oh yeah, on this tofu we use the substitute for Morning New Firm silken tofu. There's all kinds of different tofus out there, and you can use whichever you like, but this is one that we chose to use, and it's from the health food store as well. Okay, and we'll put this pot onto boil, and while it's boiling, we're going to do the cornstarch with water. And this will thicken the soup.
And I don't know if it says, but for the slurry we did an equal amount.
Yeah, we do the equal amount with cornstarch as well as the water. If cornstarch, this one says 1.5 tablespoons of cornstarch, and that's how much water you would also put with your cornstarch to make that. And we'll just pour that in as soon as the soup boils there, and it'll thicken the soup and bring it back to boil. And while it thickens, your soup is ready to go. Now on this soup, if you wanted to add carrots or different vegetables, you can. This is very basic. What we did, but you can add whatever vegetables you like to your liking.
Mushrooms.
Yeah, like mushrooms, carrots. Okay.
And that's it.
Okay, our next one, we're going to use Vitamix because we're going to be blending. And this is the tasty garlic Eloise sauce. Let's start with a half cup of water. And 1 cup of raw, unsalted cashews soaked overnight. And if you don't have time to soak it, try boiling it for 15 minutes, and that does as well. And 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. And 1 whole garlic clove. And half a teaspoon of apple cider vinegar. And half a teaspoon of salt. And half teaspoon of onion powder. And then we will blend that. And we will blend that for, a good 30 to 60 seconds. It all depends on your blender. If you have a really strong one, it won't take very long. And it just depends on, how creamy it gets, because you want it creamy as possible because it will be a creamy kind of sauce. What do you use that sauce for? We're going to put that over potatoes that we will be serving tonight. And you can put that sauce over just about anything, but we chose the potatoes to do so.
Even salad dressing.
Yeah, Darla was just saying even salad dressing. It's to your liking. And we just put the potatoes in the oven and to bake it, and then we'll just drizzle that sauce over it and see how you like it. Okay, our next one is pretty simple. It's the dessert one. It's dates with peanut butter, which is natural peanut butter, without any of that sugar and so forth, not like Jif. But you can get it at the health food store. I think most of the grocery stores, you can grind your own peanut to make peanut butter. And then we'll cut the date in half and get the pits out.
And we found that the medjool dates listed in the recipe work better than the ones that are pre-pitted because the pre-pitted ones kind of dry out a little bit.
Do you guys hear that okay?
We use the medjool dates like it's listed in the recipe because we found that if you get the ones that are pre-pitted, that they're a little drier, better for different recipes. But if you're going to use this as a fresh thing, the medjool dates work better, and just slice them in half and take the pit out.
Okay, and then she'll put the peanut butter inside the half of the date there, and then she'll put the walnut on top, and that could be your dessert and still stay in the range of, I guess, healthier dessert without refined sugar. Okay, and that is what we are serving today. Any questions? Pretty simple. Okay.
Wanda,
Yes.
is the Celtic salt important?
Yes.
You can taste the difference?
Oh, yes, you can taste the difference. And
Form of sea salt.
It is sea salt?
yeah, and this salt actually has more minerals that your body needs than a regular table salt. So it has more flavor. And this is actually better for your body than the regular table salt. Okay, they're serving. Oh, yes. Himalayan? No, this is still. This is one of the probably the best salt that you can get. Yes?
I just noticed that I use Celtic salt that you don't use as much as the regular.
Correct. Correct. because it has a lot of minerals and flavors, so you don't need, like you would do with a table salt, because it has a lot of that punch of that flavor.
And they also say that with this Celtic salt, it opens up your cells so that you can absorb the water more, so that you stay hydrated.
And I remember one of the doctors talked about Celtic salt, that to get the minerals that you're missing in your body, sometimes you just put a little bit on your tongue and let it melt, you know, and then that will help you with some of the minerals that you're missing in your body. It's supposed to be good.
And I know somebody that tried that at night because they didn't want to get up and go to the bathroom all night long like they'd done. And actually, she drank a glass of water with just dip your salt in like 12 granules of the salt, and she wasn't up at night. And I had another friend, I told him to try that, and it worked for them too.
Okay, any other questions?
At night, yeah, that's what it worked for him, because what happens is it opens up your cells, and so it actually absorbs more of the water into your cells, so then it's not just going straight through.
Have you sometimes used cocoa in there or Carrara, or is that too fatty for the
Oh, for the dates? Yeah. Go ahead. Oh, you can add carrot powder if you like to roll it in, but we just thought that we'll just stay with all the natural.
Right. There's a lot of variations. I mean, you can use the peanut butter or not use the peanut butter, put the nut in there, and maybe spray it with a little water or something and roll it in coconut flakes. I mean, because it doesn't normally stick to it, but if you do something like that, I mean, it's kind of a basic thing, and then you can just add what your favorite flavors of different stuff is to it. But I think you could probably roll it in carob and it'd work.
Does the giving crop have eggs in it?
No.
No, it has no eggs. It's tofu. But it looks like egg drop soup without the eggs. We're using tofu.
Because I didn't think it would work out. When we first tried this recipe, I thought, well, this is just the tofu is just gonna sink to the bottom, and what's this gonna be? But it doesn't. Amazingly, maybe it's because it's got Celtic salt in there. Anyway, it floats. The tofu really does float and looks kind of like the imitation of the egg soup that has it kind of floating in it.
Okay. Any other questions? Oh, and, sorry. And I was going to let you know, if you missed some of the classes, I do have recipes from previous times. If you just come and see me, I will give you those. Okay? All right. Thank you so much.
I want to make sure that we give a hand to Wanda and Darla for this excellent, outstanding, delicious, tasty, and healthy dishes that they prepared. They worked hard at this. Thank you. And Tanya, I'm sorry, yes. Okay, at this point in time, I'm going to start off with the presentation, and we were very fortunate to have our special guest here, our friend of ours, and that's Trevor Anderson. I'm going to give him an introduction on just a little bit later. But today's topic today is on exercise. So this is very important. It's an exciting topic. And I was promising we'll talk about Trevor Anderson. And Trevor Anderson is the owner of Anderson Physical Therapy in Kennewick. And probably more important is the fact that he's been a therapist for a number of patients here, and particularly my wife, Becky, because she was a very difficult rehab for her shoulder, exceptionally difficult. And so he got her through all of this without taking an incredible amount of narcotics. And so anyway, he's going to do a live demonstration after I finish this talk. And it's a 30-minute talk on stretching and exercise and strengthening and things you can do at home or at work and not have to go to the gym. Okay, now I'm going to start off with talking about exercises. So there's exercises that are really important. The first one I'm going to talk about is cardiovascular or aerobic exercises. And it's trying to exercise your heart, get your heart up. And that's important, to get the heart rate up. And I was just talking to Brian over here. He went up Badger today. I didn't get a chance. And that's an opportunity to run that heart rate up a little faster. And now one thing about this is make sure if you're going to start a new exercise program and you haven't done it for a long time, to check with your primary care about exercise program and get it cleared with him first. So the other one is muscle strengthening, and it's to tone up your muscles. And when you don't use your muscles, I think everybody would agree, they just start wasting away. They start atrophying. I mean, you have a tone. If you don't use it, your body's amazing. It just says, hey, we don't need it. We don't need this muscle here. So when you don't use the abdomen muscles, they start wasting away. And that's why you have to do some strengthening exercises. And it's not to lift heavy weights, but just to do some, like twice a week, toning up your muscles. Otherwise, they will go away. That's how the body makes it. The other one, I think with Trevor, is stretching exercises. You have to stretch. So you can run up your heart rate, you can do muscle tone, but if you don't have flexibility, it's literally like rusting. You don't have the flexibility or stretchability. So even I noticed that because I can't get down on my knees now. I have difficulty. If I had to go down on my knees, I would have, I can't bend back anymore. I can't sit back in my heels. At one time I could do that, but it wasn't even a problem. So you have to maintain your stretching exercises and your flexibility. The other one, which I saw a lot of when I was in orthopedics, is you have to get some balance exercises. And some of the simplest ones, I think, I don't want to take away from Trevor, is just even standing with one leg up. Standing like that, just because, like now, I'm doing pretty good today. But on another day, I would tip over. And you have to do that because what will happen is if you don't have your flexibility, you're going to fall easier. That's what I was seeing all the time. Once you pass about 50 or 60, I get these people falling where they wouldn't have never fallen if they had been doing their balancing exercises. And you see when they fall, they usually end up with this is where we get our broken hips and ankle fractures and broken backs and wrist fractures. There's all orthopedics, and Trevor has to rehab all these people, and he tries to prevent this from happening. And one thing I was going to say is, I don't know if it's actually a good thing to say, but a lot of times I would just actually send a referral to the physical therapist and say, this person needs to have some balance exercises. And so it gets covered by Medicare and their insurance. That way, it's an exercise program that gets initiated, and he runs that program until you can actually stand like this without tipping over. Or, balancing exercises more often, like learn how to walk with a cane or something so you don't fall on the ice and end up with having some injuries. All you need is a fracture, and suddenly it changes. Everything changes. So it's the heart, the muscle strengthening, the flexibility, and the balance. You have to get those going. This is so important as we get older. Okay, now I would say the health system in the U.S. came up with what they call an exercise that they think they should be done for chronic health conditions and people with disabilities. So chronic health conditions, meaning that you might have a heart issue or a blood pressure or diabetes, and with disabilities. And they recommend, and they print this out all the time, it says that you need about 150 minutes of moderate intensity physical activity. So that 150 minutes per week. So that's about 20 minutes a day that you have to have some intense, moderate activity. And moderate activity is where you can still kind of talk. Maybe you can't sing, but you can still talk with somebody if you're walking. It's usually walking. It's usually about anywhere from 8,000 or 10,000 steps, and that's not a lot. So you need about 150 minutes, which is about 20 minutes a day, and you need 2 days of muscle strengthening exercises. And that's all they're asking for. And they just want you to raise your heart rate up and break a little bit of a sweat, and you'd be able to talk. And if you look at the diagram up here on the right-hand side of this, I can have the red marker, it says be active, muscle strength, and then improving balance. And they want you to do improving balance. And I'm not talking about like your grandson or somebody. I'm talking about people who are 60 years old, 65-year-olds, 70-year-old that have disabilities to do these kind of exercises. It's not just reserved for the 40-year-old. They want to do it with older folks because they know that they're going to be more healthier if they do this, if they do some exercise or physical activities once, every week, every day. Okay, so this came out of a government, the CDC, Center for Disease Control, and it says that if you do regular physical activity, it'll help lower your risk for cancer. That was almost new to me. They didn't talk about this a long time ago. I'm in my 60s now. And so it would reduce your risk of cancer. And the cancers they reduced are bladder, breast, colon, the uterine cancers, esophageal cancers, and kidney cancer, and lung cancer, and stomach cancer. All the cancers are listed here that get reduced if you exercise. And they have a table, and this came out of a big, this table on the right. It says, like, if you have, you'll have like less esophageal cancer, 42% less risk of it, 27% risk of cervical cancer, just a number of cancers that if you exercise, they found that they actually have less cancers. And so this was really important. It really surprised me. So, so one of the goals of exercise is reduce cancer. And I found this on the internet. There's books now. There's a ton of stuff written on reducing cancer by exercising. And it says that you reduce your risk of colon cancer by 60% if you exercise. And if you have a sedentary job, a job where you just sit all the time, which is like what I had. I was sitting about 12 hours a day, and even 7 days a week. You have an increased risk of colon cancer. And if you have prostate cancer, you can decrease the risk of prostate cancer by 74%. That's 74% by exercising. So, and prostate cancer is a problem for all of us. So regular exercise can decrease the risk of breast cancer and female cancers and breast cancer. So the other one is if you exercise, you feel better, you feel like you have more energy and be less sick. And the Surgeon General has put out in their report that they think the physical exercise is the single best predictor of longevity. So if you exercise, you'll live longer, basically. That's their single factor they can come up with. So that's why they're really pushing exercise. If you can exercise, it can help. And this came out of the internet too, 10-minute workout to boost your energy, to make you feel better. So another, and the reason I brought this slide up was when they talk about exercise, they're not talking about exercise for healthy people. They're not pushing it on healthy people. They're pushing it on people that have chronic condition or disabilities. And this comes directly out of their recommendations, like like a 100-page book. It says that exercise should be done by people who are cancer survivors, people with arthritis. Like when you get older, you're going to get arthritis. So it needs still to be done for people that have arthritis. And with people with high blood pressure, people with diabetes, multiple sclerosis, I hope nobody has that, and stroke. So even if you had a stroke, they're really pushing you to try to get some exercise. So it's not just for the people that are healthy. Parkinson's disease, a spinal cord injury, and dementia. Even if you have dementia, they're really recommending that, pushing the idea of exercise. And if you can't meet the recommendations, be as active as you can and try to avoid inactivity. Inactivity means that you're not doing anything every day. Every day you should be trying to do something, even for if it's 10 minutes. So this one came out, I remember about 5 years when it first came out. I was really surprised. It says inactivity or sitting is the new smoking. It is the new smoking now. They're classifying it as like you're smoking if you sit. So basically, sitting or lack of exercise is the new smoking. The more hours you sit each day, the higher risk of metabolic problems. And metabolic problems like diabetes, lupus, a whole bunch of heart disease problems all originate because you don't sit. And they're recommending that you at least, even if you don't make the 150 minutes, at least try to move multiple times every day. And so, like I said, smoking is inactivity is the new smoking. And this one came out, this was very interesting. I think this is where it came from. So they studied like 123,000 people, men and women, all ages. And it just happened to be from the Cancer Society. But they were looking for cancer. But what they found out in a 14-year study, in 14 years of studying this, that what they found was if the women who were inactive and sat for over 6 hours a day, like an office job, they were sitting for 6 hours per day, over 6 hours per day, 94% of them were more likely to die versus those who were more physically active and sat for less than 3 hours a day. So if you sit for more than 6 hours a day, you had a 94% chance of dying versus someone who was more physically active and sat for less than 3 hours a day. And that's for just women. And for men, if men sat for more than 6 hours a day, they were 48% more likely to die than their counterpart that was standing. And they just found that, and they had like 125 million people, 1,000 people they studied over 14 years. They found that information. So exercise and not sitting is really important. So now they have a category of sitting disease. I just show you a slide of this. They have a listing. If you sit for so many more hours, you're more likely to have heart disease or diabetes. And they've actually put posters out trying to get people to sit less and just walk more or exercise more. Another goal of exercise is to reduce heart disease. And physically active people have up to a 50% reduction in heart disease. So if you're more active, you have less risk of heart disease. 50% reduction, that's quite a bit. It's also reduces stroke. Walking is a very effective means of exercise for stroke reduction. And this flyer came out. It was already pre-made. Somebody else already made this flyer. I just copied it. But they're pushing this kind of information out, telling you at least walk or do some exercise. It will help you reduce the risk of diseases like stroke. Okay, and also the same for diabetes. If you if you exercise, you'll have better control of your blood sugars, and your insulin receptors will be more workable or receptive. And it even does a better job than medicine, like metformin. I don't know if anybody's taking metformin here. That's a pretty common medication, but there was a study to show that if you exercise, it was doing better than just taking the medicine. And there's like a 35% reduction in, that's the slide up here, for diabetes if you exercise. If you exercise, you'll lose weight, basically because exercise reduces calories, burns the calories. And so if you burn more calories, you weigh less. So that's basically how you can lose weight. The other one is for mental health. If you exercise, you'll feel better. You have increased feeling of well-being, reduced stress, and you have less anxiety. You have less depression. You have a better heart rate. You have less stress hormones. So that's the mental health part of this thing. There's even a science to it, but for example, it talks about serotonin and dopamine. It gives you a positive mood effect, and by exercising, you'll have more of that positive chemical. Okay, the other one is it's getting there, because even I've noticed it. I'm not maybe as sharp as or remember things as well as I used to, because I'm more older. And if you exercise, I've even noticed that it does help you to help remember things. I don't think I forget everything, but I just, like someone might say something to me and I might forget it. So exercise helps prevent Alzheimer's and dementia. And again, there's another slide that just came right off of the thing. I guess there's a lot of books written on this. Exercise helps reduce risk of premature death. And this one says that by walking, you can reduce the risk of premature death by about 40%. And exercising and walking makes a difference. And then this one, because I'm in orthopedics and then Trevor's in physical therapy, it helps you stay independent if you do exercise and do therapy. That way you can stay independent. And what they said here was exercise keeps you physically independent as you age. And it strengthens your bones and helps prevent osteoporosis. What I mean by that is when you walk, the bones see stress. And when the bones see stress, it'll make the bone stronger. And when your bone is stronger, if you happen to fall or something, it doesn't break as easy. So when I see somebody who doesn't walk at all or doesn't exercise, I know their bone is really super soft. All they need is a little simple fall, and then they'll get a fracture. And then we're now talking about doing something to take care of that fracture. Exercise helps older adults prevent falls, reduce the risk of injuries such as bone fractures, strengthening the back and abdomen and muscles, help improve balance. And this one came out of the American College of Sports Medicine. So I'm just going to read this because I thought it was well put. It says, functional independence, which is being independent as you get older, is directly dependent on physical fitness. So they're saying how much independence you have to be able to get around and walk around is very tied to your physical fitness. So this is the ability to carry out daily tasks with vigor and alertness. So that's daily living, to be able to do it well without undue fatigue and with ample energy to enjoy leisurely pursuits. So in other words, live life and enjoy it, and to meet unforeseen emergencies. So they're tying it to your physical fitness, how much exercise you do. This one, I'm going to say, even with disabilities, you have to do exercise. This is really what this slide says. It just says, do 150 minutes of exercise per week will help you considerably keep fit. That's all they're asking, which is about 8,000 or 10,000 steps if you can get it per day, which most people can make it. Okay, and then some other things, some guidelines. All adults should avoid physical activity or avoid inactivity. Even a small amount of physical activity is better than none. There are health benefits to any level of physical activity, And for the very sedentary, start low and slow. So start up slow. And so this is from Counsels on Health. This is Ellen White. It says, she wrote this over 200 years ago. Or excuse me, 100 years ago. It says, walking in all cases where it is possible is the best remedy for diseased bodies, because in this exercise, all organs of bodies are brought into use. There is no exercise that can take the place of walking. By it, the circulation of blood is improved. Page 200 in Counsels of Health. And she is recommending this, even like 150 years ago, that you need to do some walking. Okay, so this one, it says that we should do low impact walking. There's less a risk of injury and less shock to the joints. So we're not asking for people to run or even jog. Even walk would be helpful. And this table on here came out of a chart on the web. If you walk so many minutes of walking each week. So I'm going to take the one right in the second one. It says if you walk 75 to 150 or 49 minutes per week, you will extend your life by 2.5 years. If you walk 450 minutes per week, you can extend your life by 4.5 years. And they got tables to show this. So the more walking you do, basically, there's more longevity. This one, now I'm going to bring this one up because we're gardening. We're trying to garden. And we're learning how. Says that gardening, working outside and getting your hands dirty and is a relaxing exercise. It's productive and beneficial. There's even flyers out now trying to encourage people to start gardening. And it says the longest living people, like in the blue zones, are in Okinawa, Japan, and Sardinia, Italy, and they garden a lot. And it's just one way of getting your exercise. And I'm going to put this one right here. This is from the blue zones. It says the world's longest lived people don't pump iron, run marathons, or join a gym. So they don't join a gym. Instead, they live in an environment that constantly nudges them into moving without thinking about it. They grow gardens and don't have the mechanical conveniences for house and yard work. So the thing I thought was they live in an environment that constantly nudges them into moving without thinking about it. So basically, they make it so they have to do exercise. They have to do it because that's a way of life for them. And if you look at the very top thing, it says here, they make daily physical activity an unavoidable part of their environment. So they just make it so they have to they exercise or walk. There's no choice. And that's how these blue zone people are living that long. And if you see, it's on the top of the pyramid, the number one triangle on the top of the pyramid, along with the other things like, spiritual and believing God and having friends and social connections. But the one they put in the top was physical activity. Okay, for physical activity again, start slowly. Start several short daily walks for 5 or 10 minutes, gradually increasing in duration. You can also bike, swim, or garden, or water aerobics, or indoor rowing. And this will help dampen the blood sugars and help you with feeling better and living longer and having a better quality of life. Not necessarily living longer, but living a better quality of life. Instead of having pain or suffering, you'll feel better. Probably the most important thing here is, it is the most important, trust in God. Faith and trust in God undergirds all the other health laws. So that's the most important thing. So no matter how much I've been trying to exercise or eat healthier, you still need to believe in your trust in God, and to pray to him to help you with this. All right. So I am going to get ready. Oh, I think Trevor here was trying to learn how to fly. Yeah. So he's got an exercise program for you. I'm going to turn it over to him. He's got a speaker, I think, here. And like I said, he took care of my wife and Becky, and he's taking care of other patients here. So he's a good friend. He's a good resource for us.
Does it sound like? Oh, there I am. Okay. If you want, I brought like a piece of paper if you want to take notes. So if you want to kind of, and then if I have some pens too, Gordon, if you. Okay. So here's some pens if people need some pens.
Oh, wow.
So. So in my clinic, people always say, I give them exercises, and they always say they're going to remember them, and then they come back the next time, and usually they don't remember them. So, which is fine because that keeps me in business. But as they're handing these out, how many of you are? Gordon talked a lot about exercise and exercising, and really, if that's not part of your daily routine, that it can be intimidating, because I think probably all of us, Gordon covered just about all the important parts of exercise, but how many of you are a little bit intimidated by just the thought of somebody saying like, well, you need to exercise, just go out and exercise. So for a lot of times, if that's not part of if that's not how you grew up, or that's not part of your routine, or after you retire, you might have been working in a job that gave you a good structure to your day, and then you retire and you don't have to exercise or go to work or whatever. So then when you go to your doctor and they tell you, well, you just have to exercise, that becomes a little bit overwhelming, because, what do you do? Where do you start? Do you go to the gym? How do you carve out time in your living room, or things like that? So, a story I like to tell, I had a friend who helped conduct a study with Google, with the company Google, and they wanted to understand how they could help their employees be healthier so they could be more productive. It was Google, it was about money, right? So what they did is they took 100 of their employees that worked in the little cubicles at Google headquarters, and they took 50 of them, and they let them leave their workstation for an hour a day, and they gave them a nutritionist and a personal trainer, and they had them exercise for an hour a day, structured. And before they did this, they measured everybody's, their heart rate, their body fat, their blood sugar, all these people in the study. The other 50 people, they took them out of their chairs and they gave them standing desks. And so they did this study over 6 months. And so just every day, can you imagine, every day for 6 months you have a personal trainer and nutritionist helping guide you through it. At the end of the 6 months, the study showed everybody was blown away. The group that just ate whatever they want, didn't exercise, just did all their normal thing, the group that was at the standing station were exponentially better than the group that exercised, structured for an hour a day. So Gordon kind of mentioned it. The point of that is you don't have to be overwhelmed by exercise. It's just movement. And really, walking. In our clinic, we have a saying that necks and backs like to walk. And so walking is almost one of the best things you can do. And here in the Tri-Cities, fortunately, we traditionally have good weather most of the year. But when you don't, guess what? The mall opens up, and you can walk laps around the mall. And there's it's a great group of people that walk pretty faithfully at the mall. So walking is just one of the best things you can do. Another concern as people start to try to exercise, and Gordon was absolutely right, you should always check with your physician and make sure that whatever your exercise plan is going to fit with your health needs. But another concern people often have, especially as you get older, is arthritis, right? The doctors like to throw around that word, and it's in the news and things like that. So you see arthritis all the time, and you worry about that. And the way I like to describe arthritis is if you're not hurting all the time, you're not always in pain, then on those days that you feel good, where did your arthritis go? It's part of the bone. It doesn't just disappear day to day like this, right? So what happens? Arthritis it gets a lot of blame for a lot of the problems, when really a lot of problems come because we're stiff and we don't move. And so even if you have arthritis, you can still move, and it's actually it can be reparative, and you can improve, you can reduce the effect of your arthritis. You can't fix the arthritis, but you can reduce the effect by changing how you move and the mechanics of your joints and things like that. So the biggest exercise tip I can give you is that you should walk, just like Gordon talked about it. It's just one of the best things you can do. And especially if you can walk with a friend, it's a great, or a spouse or a partner or anything like that. It's just it's mentally good for you. You can solve all the world's problems, and you're moving. And then the other best tip I can give you is to stand up and move. And then before I start going kind of down some of the body parts, the one other part that caught my ear that Gordon talked about is balance. You have to have good balance, and the best way to improve your balance is to make yourself lose your balance. So if you can lose your balance without falling over, then you're going to be improving your balance. One of the best ways to do it, like Gordon showed, is to stand on one leg. So when you're in the kitchen and you're making egg drop soup or doing whatever, fixing your dates with peanut butter, and stand on one leg. And so if you can stand on one leg, your balance will improve, and you'll notice it pretty quickly, because a lot of times you have the muscles there, they just need to be awakened. Okay, so before I go any farther, does anyone have any questions or specific questions about a specific type of a problem? Yeah.
I think I missed the study where you said one group got a candy bar and one group exercised, and what was the result?
Well, I don't think they gave anyone candy bars, but the people that got candy bars were happy, but they were more unhealthy. No, so what the study was the people that they sat at their computers and 8 hours a day, in their office job, and they sat, even though they exercised, were more unhealthy, or they did not make as much of a health gain as those who stood at their computer for 8 hours a day. So now, you can go on online. These standing desks used to be quite expensive, and in our office we have standing desks, and they were like $100 a piece, and they have like USB ports and like computer, you can lock it. They're up and down. They're incredible, and they're not expensive anymore. It used to be a big deal. I'm an ergonomic assessment specialist. I'm the only therapist that has that credential in the eastern side of the state. And so I get called to go look at workstations, like at Tri-City Community Health, different city halls will have me come in. And it used to be just a huge HR nightmare for me to get a standing desk for somebody that was struggling. And now it's become so affordable that they're almost beating me to the punch. Before I get there, they know that's what I'm going to say, and they just buy them before I even get there. So it really has become a great thing. And so even if you're not working, you can put those in your house when you're emailing your friends, when you're looking on the internet, when you're doing things. If you can stand when you do it, the health benefits are just exponentially greater than sitting all day. So, and that's a good question though. Any other questions? Yeah.
When I stand on one leg, I'm very unbalanced, but I just hold on to it.
Yeah. So the key is when you want to practice your balance, and to improve your balance, you have to challenge yourself and make it so you're unbalanced. But the rule, and this is the rule in therapy and in orthopedics, you're not allowed to fall. It's against the rules. And here's the thing, orthopedic surgeons and therapists make their money on people that fall. So it's not that, it's the paperwork. When you fall, there's so much paperwork that it's not worth our time. So when you're standing, make sure stand at the bar or the table, the back of a chair, and you don't have to death grip it, use fingertip balance. And then when you feel comfortable, then you start, branching out, and you're just standing on one leg. And it's easy, everyone can do it, unless you have a serious, joint or leg disability. And you'll be shocked. Within a week, you'll start finding that you can balance better. And then you start finding that when you're stepping into the shower, you're not catching your foot on the threshold, or when you're going through the door, you're clearing that space without problems, and then you reduce your risk of a fall. Any other questions? Yeah.
I'm just curious about, there's this lady at 6 o'clock in the morning on PBS classical stuff. Have you ever watched her?
I haven't seen her, but I know which one you're talking about. So here's the great part about the program. They used to have Sit and Be Fit on PBS, and now they have I can't remember. It's something stretch, right? Classical stretch. Here's the great part. As long as you're all smart. As long as you don't feel like you're endangering yourself, and if you have a condition where you need to check with your doctor, you do that. Here's the thing. Without the guidance of somebody like me or something, you can do any of those, and they're all good. And the rule of thumb is, if it hurts, don't do it, right? Now, that doesn't mean don't push yourself, because it's okay to feel it, right? You want to push into the barrier, but if it's hurting you, then you're doing the wrong thing, and you either need to change what you're doing or check with somebody to make sure you're not causing harm. Yeah, that's a good question. But there's lots of those programs. You can go on YouTube and find yoga for beginners and Pilates for beginners. Be careful with CrossFit. I see, 5 CrossFit people a week because they do stupid things and hurt themselves, and so because they're competing with each other. Yeah, Wes. Treadmills. Treadmills are good. How do I say this without offending people? A treadmill is good because you're walking. But there are some problems with treadmills. First of all, if you don't have a really high quality treadmill, most of them have what's called belt slip. So as you're walking, especially as you increase the pace, and if you've ever done this, you'll maybe feel it. You'll get a little jerk when you step. I've seen numerous times you'll see injuries to knees and hips because they start exercising and then the belt will slip. So typically, if you're at Planet Fitness or Gold's Gym or those are commercial quality treadmills, and they're pretty good. Also, walking on a treadmill is better than not walking by a lot. I personally prefer walking, outdoors because it's a balance challenge. But if you're not quite ready for that, walking indoors, at Walmart or the mall. And then if you're not quite ready to leave the house to go walk and you have a treadmill, then that's a great option. The one nice thing about treadmills is, you have grab bars. So I would never say don't walk on a treadmill necessarily, but you don't have to go run out and buy a treadmill, because I don't think it's the greatest. It's kind of like cheating your way through walking, because you don't have to work that hard. You just have to pick up your feet, and the belt's moving for you, right? So there's much less muscle activity. An example would be I worked at St. Luke's Rehabilitation Hospital in Spokane, and one of the things we would do with people that were paralyzed, from the waist down, is we could put them on a treadmill, even though they couldn't walk really. And you can kind of suspend them and lift them a little bit, and they could exercise on a treadmill. Great use of a treadmill, but the point is, as you're on a treadmill, you don't have to work as hard. And so the cost benefit, time to benefit ratio is much greater if you're just walking. Does that make sense? Now, here's the thing. That's my personal opinion, and somebody could argue with me and I wouldn't fight back too hard, so because there are other people that have opinions that like, oh, treadmills are the greatest thing ever. But I think if that's the way you need to exercise to make yourself do it, because you don't have to go to the gym and you have one at home, great. Then do it. Yeah.
What about stationary bikes?
I think stationary bikes are super great, and they don't how do you say it? They don't outrank walking, but stationary bikes are really great, especially for somebody who is struggling with an injury, a knee, ankle, hip, back injury, somebody who struggles with balance. Say if you have to use an assistive device, a cane or a crutches or things like that, then a lot of times you can't get your heart rate up enough, you can't stay with it long enough, and so I am a big fan of stationary bikes. That's a good question. Yeah.
How about rowing machines?
Oh yeah. So if you are healthy enough to do it and your body can tolerate it, rowing machine is the dry land of swimming. So swimming is considered probably one of the greatest cardiovascular exercises you can do, and a rowing machine I think is maybe next to that, as long as you can do it safely and it doesn't hurt your back and shoulders and things like that. And if you're doing it right with proper technique, it should not bother you that way. But rowing machines are really good. Good question. Anyone else? Okay, good. Oh, yeah.
I do, and I'm sorry I was in the kitchen.
No worries.
So I missed everything, but I have a question about osteoarthritis in the knees.
Yeah.
Is there a limit to what someone should do with that condition, or is it like if you can handle it, do it?
Kind of, if you can handle it, do it. So there's a principle, Gordon talked about it a little bit, it's called Wolff's Law, and basically that's the law of use it or lose it. And so when you stress bone, you strengthen the bone. Now, if you have arthritis in the knee, you can't necessarily fix the arthritis, and the cartilage won't necessarily come back. But if you can strengthen around that area and that joint and improve muscle activity, think of it like if your knee is working like this and it hurts because you have arthritis and you've worn out that pathway. What if you get your strength back in how it should be, and now all of a sudden you tilt it over and now you're moving on the good part, right? So a rule of thumb that we like to use in exercises that might be uncomfortable is that hurt does not necessarily mean harm as long as that hurt goes away quickly. And quickly would be, if you're doing a pretty stressing exercise, the discomfort, and I don't like to use pain because if it hurts, if it's painful, then you ought to check with somebody to see if you're causing harm. But if it's uncomfortable and you feel it, that's okay if the discomfort disappears within, let's call it like 10 minutes after doing it, right? And without guidance, I would almost say don't push through pain because pain, your body is telling you that something's wrong or something is off. And so in my clinic, Becky might argue with this, but typically, if it hurts, then we don't do it. But there are exceptions, right? After a surgery, the therapy can be really uncomfortable. But in general exercise, you should not be hurting yourself. Unfortunately, no. So if you've really worn out your cartilage or you have advanced arthritis where it's just really affecting your ability to do something, that's where you want to consult your doctor and then maybe the orthopedist. Here's the thing, nobody wants to have a surgery. Surgery is not a magic wand or a silver bullet, but man, they are so good at those right now. When I've been a therapist for about 25 years, and when I started, if you had a knee replaced, it was 6 months of just excruciating pain 3 to 5 days a week. It was really terrible. And I lately, in the last month, I've had probably 6 or 7 new patients that have had total knee replacements. And every single one of them by week 3, they're walking without their cane or walker. They have full range of motion. It's incredible. I mean, Gordon probably knows more about how they're doing that, but there's some doctors here in town that are really, really impressive, and it's just not that big of a deal. So if you're suffering and if you can't walk because you hurt, well, run that up the flagpole. Go find, talk to an orthopedic surgeon. They may not have to do surgery. They have other tools, right? There's certain kinds of injections that can be helpful. They might determine that therapy is a better route, and if you strengthen around that painful area, you can continue to exercise. But ultimately, you need to be able to walk and you need to be able to move. Gordon called it functional independence. That's the goal, and sometimes it requires, surgical intervention or something more aggressive than what therapy is considered a conservative treatment, and sometimes it requires more. And here's the thing. I'm not going to try to say I'm the world's greatest therapist. There's a lot of good therapists in town. But if you go to a therapist and they start trying to outline you a treatment plan that goes on for months, then you want to check what they're about. Because if somebody comes in with knee pain and they don't have a trauma and there's not positive findings on imaging, their knee just hurts, whether it's arthritis or whatever, I usually tell them, listen, we're going to work on this for 2 to 6 times. And you might not be better, but if something's not happening, then I'm going to call your doctor and we're going to talk about what else we can do. Because most of it is what you're doing at home, and you should quickly move into improvement. And if you're not, for me, that's a sign that we might need to consult somebody like Gordon. Good question. Okay, so I want to give you some stuff. So Becky, would you be my guinea pig? She's used to me bossing her around. I guess, well, there's some other people I could call up here too, but. Okay, so my thought is, so those were good questions. So I want to go through just some really simple, hopefully not overwhelming movements. I'm not even going to call them exercises, because sometimes exercise is intimidating and you don't want to do it because it's exercise. So these are just movements that you can do, and we're going to start neck, and then mid back, then shoulders, low back, kind of like that. Okay. So these are again, if any of these cause pain, especially pain that lasts, then you need to talk to your doctor and kind of figure out why. So none of these should really hurt you. Okay, so the first one, this is considered one of the most universal neck movements that you can do. And there's a whole protocol, and actually a lot of what I'm going to show you are in this family. It's called, it's called MDT, but it was developed by a New Zealander a long time ago. His name was Robin McKenzie, and it's just universally for Western cultured people, it's some of the best movements you can do. So the first one is for your neck. So all of us know that we spend a lot of our day, even if you're active, like this, driving, looking at your phone, your computer, all of those things. And so what happens is you start to develop, if this is my vertebrae, the bones in your spine, you start to develop kind of adaptive shortening or creep into flexion, like this, okay? So here's the great news. You can combat that very easily with I call it a turtle, or a chin. It's not a chin tuck, which would be that. It's a chin retraction. So Becky's going to show us. She's going to go straight back like this. Make a double chin. It's like you're making a double chin, like that. So it looks like you should almost feel yourself almost like choking a little bit. Here's the great thing. You don't have to hold it. And the best way to do it is if you did like 5 of those, like you don't have to hold it, 2, 3. If you did 5 of those every hour or so, you would be shocked at the reduction in headaches, the improvement here's the interesting part. Going straight back like this will improve your ability to check your blind spot when you're driving. it will, this spot that hurts here, it reduces that. That spot is a referral spot from your low neck. And so as you go back, you start to take those bones start to slide back, and you start to take pressure off of those bones. So you're just making a double chin. Like that, okay? Super easy. It's a movement, and it doesn't take any. You can do it while you're driving. Every time you hit a red light, do it to the music, whatever you're listening to. Hopefully, if it's NPR, it'll be a lot slower. Okay, so that's the first one. Really easy, right? So the next one it's the close cousin to the neck one, and this one is like your mid back and the back part of your shoulders. And all you do is you knuckle your hands like this, and then when you do it, all of you are going to have your elbows open, right? So what you have to do is close your elbows, and then here I'll turn sideways so you can kind of see. You're going to look up, and my elbows are going to go with my nose. And then when you get to the top, you're going to push your elbows to the ceiling as high as you can, and then come back down. You don't have to hold it. So it's up, push, back down. And depending on where you have restriction depends on where you'll feel it. You might feel that in your mid back. You might feel it, through your shoulders. So that is showing you where you have that restriction. And the challenging part about that, like this one will just happen, right? This one, you actually have to go after it a little bit. So you get up here and you have to push, because your body doesn't want to do that. But here's the thing, how often do you find yourselves reaching up overhead?
I throw a ball as high as I can.
Yeah, that is a great exercise.
It releases so much.
Yeah, it's exactly, and that's kind of what you're doing here without the risk of breaking your nose if you're bad at catching. You're good at catching, so that's a plus. Okay, and actually, along with that is actually, it's almost that same thing you're talking about. So you do this one, and then the other movement that's good is just to reach up high. And you can move your hands around, but you go after it. We don't ever reach high. The steering wheel is here, the stove is here, the computer's here. It's like we just don't reach overhead very often. And shoulders are a dynamic joint. Your shoulders want to move. And then a lot of times we just don't move them. So this is the next shoulder one. And then here's the next one that you do. Let's see, do you want to stand up, Becky? So the next shoulder movement you do is if you turn your palms forward, then you're going to reach back as far as you can reach. And you don't have to hold, again, you don't have to hold it. It's a movement, not a stretch. So you're here like this. In the clinic, one thing we do is we'll give people a broomstick. Right? You remember it now? Actually, it's a PVC pipe. But we just have them hold it, and then they reach back. And the key, though, is the palms have to be forward. And so, and there's reasons why, but this is not the same as this. And it has to do with the mechanics of the shoulder and the joint capsule and things like that. Yeah. So when you bring so a lot of these, here's the muscular component of these. Because none of these are strengthening exercises really yet. And so the muscular component is your muscles and tendons have a little sensor called a Golgi tendon organ. And so this shortening that we get as we curl into a ball to do all our stuff, it takes those Golgi tendon organs, those little sensors, and they tell them that this is the normal position that you're supposed to be in over time. And so then what happens as you come up, it becomes uncomfortable. Or as you're here, the muscle is always on stretch. And so it's always getting zinged with a nerve signal, because it's like, wait, what are you doing? You're supposed to be here. And so you become like accustomed to being here, almost to the point where the only way you really feel better is to crouch even more, which I call it a toilet bowl cycle, right? So if you come up here, it hurts, so you get away from it. And then you start to get tight. So then if you come up here, it hurts. So then you get away from it. And all of a sudden, you're just flushing your mobility down the toilet. It's just like down the drain. So the way to improve your mobility is you have to push into those areas that your body doesn't like without causing pain that lasts, right? Discomfort is okay. That's how, like talking about gardening, like how does a tree get strong? With stress, wind, and looking for water, things like that. So the stress is how we get it strong. That's how our bones get strong. That's how our muscles get strong, is by stressing them. Okay, so then the most challenging one is the low back one. And let's see, here, Becky, if you come over here. So this, without the chair. So this one is basically we sit all day. Even if you try not to sit, we end up sitting a lot. And so, so Becky, stack your fists like this and put your forehead on your fists. So you can do this anywhere in your house or wherever you go. And so she's really relaxed here. And then all you do is you take your back and you push your belly button to the wall and then come back out. You don't have to hold it. And then just back in. And if you, same thing, if you could do 10 of these every hour or two, you would be amazed. If you want to fix your sciatica, this is where you fix it. If you want to fix your hip pain, this is where you fix it. If you want to fix your low back stiffness, this is where you fix it. Okay? Obviously, that's a broad brush, right? There's conditions that would lead to those other things. But if you want to really minimize your risk of having low back pain or hip pain or poor balance or sciatic pain, it's that one. Now here's the thing, that one can be uncomfortable because we sit a lot. And that's okay. Hurt does not mean harm when you're doing that exercise, as long as it goes away quickly, right? Okay. And then the next one, the last thing I was going to talk about is balance, but I already kind of talked about that. So those are the general movements that just kind of like, and you'll notice a common theme, right? They're all going backwards from what we're used to doing. And so, but if you carve out literally like 2 minutes every couple hours to go backwards, you'll do yourself a lot of favors. Okay, so now, let's see. Okay, yeah. So now, strengthening. You know, how do you get yourself stronger without hurting? Most of us know. I mean, well, for your arms and your neck and your upper back, all you have to do is just like lift stuff. And so, I mean, it can be anything from a soup can and you just lifting and moving it. And if you want to become more structured in it, there's so many ways to strengthen that I would almost recommend you either talk to a therapist or at least research some different good ways to strengthen your arms. But if I could give you one strengthening exercise for your arms, there's a fascinating study. They did a study among Olympic athletes across all sports, summer and winter, and they found that 90% of all gold medalists do this exercise, no matter what the sport is. And all it is you take a weight, and it can be anything from a soup can to whatever you can lift, and you take your hands, you open them like this, and then close them about 30 degrees, and then your shoulders are not straight ahead, but they're 30 degrees out, and you lift just to there and back down. And so the angles kind of matter, right? I'm not straight up and I'm not all the way open at a comfortable angle. It's a fascinating study. Across every sport, whether they're archers or rowers or divers or gymnasts or runners, they all do this exercise. Fascinating. And just remember, you can't be closed here. You want to be open 30 degrees. So if you could only pick one, that's the one I would do. Okay, the other one I would do is push-ups. Now, sometimes that's intimidating. Oh, I can't do a push-up. I can't get on the ground. And so you can do a push-up against the wall, or you can do a push-up against the table, whatever your level of push-ups. Push-ups are also a universal strengthening exercise. Okay, so you don't have to get down on the ground to do a push-up. You can do it against a wall or on a table or chair, things like that. Okay, so arms, there's just a lot of, there's a lot of nuance to your shoulder muscles and things like that. So it's just hard in a class like this, like to know exactly what would be the most beneficial. But for your core and your legs, we all know that's important. You've all heard strengthen your core to protect your back. And first I would tell you that back stretch going backwards is better to protect your back than even core strength, because you have to be able to move backwards. So there's essentially, let's see, I have to think in my head. There's essentially 5 exercises that are kind of universal to back, hip, knee, ankle. And so if you do these, they're universal. So we give them to almost every single patient that has a back, hip, knee, ankle problem, any one of those problems. And the first one is you're just going to squat, and you can just do a chair level squat and then back up. When you squat, you want to have your feet like shoulder width apart and have your toes pointing out just a little bit. The other part of a squat that's important is if you think of pushing your bottom back as you go down, that you'll help yourself. I actually am not sure why this is, but as people get older, they tend to sit or squat like this. And if you can see, my weight gets way on my heels, and then I kind of fall the last few inches. Maybe you've experienced that. So the key is to push your bottom backwards and your chest to the floor. So my chest goes way forward, and you won't fall. Most people, when they lose their balance, fall backwards, because our feet keep us from falling. So if your chest goes way out over your knees, then you will not fall. Okay? And it will activate your hips, which will activate your muscles. So that's the first one. The next one, and this one, if you have poor balance, so these next ones come into balance, so they're part of the thing. And so you can have a chair or a table or something, but the exercise is high knee marching, slow. So you're trying to maximize your hip motion on the up leg, and then you're balancing on your down leg. Okay. The next one, and I need to come up with a better name for this, because my mentor told me it was the Jane Fonda exercise, but nobody likes Jane Fonda. So I need to come up with a different way of saying it. But essentially, you're standing here, and you're just going to come out. And again, hold on to something if you balance. But it's straight out to the side. Like that. Interestingly enough, the leg you're standing on is working harder than the leg you're lifting, because it has to balance and support your body and keep you upright. And so then you would do both sides, right? So then the next one is a close cousin, and you're just going to go back. And this is kind of a 2-part exercise. It's like your knee bends, and then your rear end clenches to lift you higher. I call it a mule kick. Like that. As you're doing this one, the tendency, your brain wants you to get your foot up higher, so the tendency is to do this, right? So stay standing tall, and wherever that limit is, that's how much motion you have. Okay, how many was that? That was 4. Oh, I thought there was a 5th. Maybe it was 4, and I'm bad at math. Okay. Oh, I know. So the 5th one is lunging, which becomes both a strengthening and a balancing exercise. And a lot of times, patients are intimidated by lunges, because you think that a lunge looks something like, this. Like that. It doesn't have to be that, right? This can be a lunge. A big step out, both knees bend, come back. Big step out, both knees bend, and come back. The key to making it a good lunge for you is your back foot should be just kind of on the ball of your foot, on your toes. So I have very little weight on that back foot. So then this leg is having to balance as you lower down into that lunge. Okay? All right, so I'm telling you, if you do those, like 5 movements and a few of those little strengthening exercises, and most importantly, walk, the biggest thing for me about all of this, so health is obviously, that's built into it. The biggest thing to movement and walking and feeling better is the mental component of it. I mean, our world is crazy. I mean, between the 24-hour news cycle and just the political environment we live in, and just all of those things, it can be overwhelming. And I just think it's really important to walk and to get outside and to move. My wife and I recently became empty nesters, and so as we're looking at each other like, are we even friends? We've just been raising kids for 27 years. A few years ago, we decided to start walking. So I'm not a morning person, but we made that commitment. So I get up, and my wife and I, we walk every morning, like for anywhere from 2 to 6 miles every morning before work. And it's just been super great for me. I really struggled during COVID and all these things, and so the chance for me to get out and walk, and then also strengthen my relationship with my wife, has just been really a blessing for me. And so I would just encourage you to look for ways to move, and whether that's moving around the garden, around your house, shopping, walking, things like that. To me, the mental health benefit of being physically active is just, it's worth its weight in gold. And so with that, I'll kind of finish, unless anyone has any questions. Okay, thank you, everyone.
I'm going to give my strong endorsement for Trevor here. He's been outstanding. He's also very compassionate, and he's empathetic about taking care of people. And you can see, based on his style and what he taught us, it was really important. In fact, I actually do a lot of those exercises. I found some of them on my own.
Yeah.
And I found, like, even like when you sit back, a lot of people tend to drop the last 3 inches or 4 inches. So you need to lean forward more, so you don't hurt yourself when you sit down on the toilet. So it's really cool. But we have a special gift for you for coming here and taking your time to educate us.
Oh,
and
man, you guys are too nice.
keep you healthy. So we've got a lot of fruit. Becky picked this out.
That's very tough.
Yeah, so we hope that you have an opportunity to come back. We really appreciate you coming here. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for everybody for coming. We're so glad you were able to make it, and that you had an opportunity to learn more about exercise, and that hopefully you will be able to join us more, and hopefully it'll keep you more healthy and have a more, I would say, a happier life. And we have a schedule in the back of all the other programs. I think the next one will probably be on losing weight, and we have some other ones scheduled. Now we may change things depending on if we can get a guest speaker. So we'll have to see that. But I'd like to say our prayer to close this with. And so, dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for allowing us the opportunity to get together in fellowship and learn more about exercises and how to be more healthier and to be more productive, and having an opportunity to have a guest speaker that was able to convey this information to us so we can be better and more healthier. Thank you for all your blessings. In the name of Jesus, amen.